about IPA. We were talking first about consonants and how we classify all consonants in terms of place of articulation, manner of articulation, and voicing. When we talk about vowels in IPA, we talk about them in terms of their backness, their height, and their roundness. All vowels in English are voiced, meaning your vocal cords vibrate when you make them. So we don't use that as a distinctive feature. It doesn't tell us anything about the vowels because all the vowels are always voiced. But we do characterize different vowels in terms of other features, which have to do with where in the mouth you're making constrictions and how high in the mouth your tongue is and what your lips are doing. Now the vowels are tricky because we spell vowels with much more variation in English when we spell things out than we do consonants. Consonants are much more predictable. The vowels always give people trouble. And that's because there are lots of things. I was talking with a friend about how the sound E very often doesn't get spelled with the letter E at all. And sometimes there's an E involved, sometimes not. There are actually 11 different ways that you can spell that in English. When we talk about vowels in IPA, we focus on these different vowels, and some of the symbols that people struggle with a little bit include eh, which looks like a backward 3. We use it, that's the eh in test, eh, that eh sound, soft E sound. The I looks like a capital I. It's the soft I sound, I, like in trick. Which is what we call a rhotic vowel. It's a vowel that has a little bit of a liquid attached to it. It's the in bird. You might hear it in words like forever, things like that, where you have this sound. The in truck is written with an upside down V. And then the in put is written with that symbol, looks like a horseshoe. And then the aw in caught. Only if you distinguish these two words. Does anybody here say those two words the same? In my dialect, they're said the same. Caught and caught. Yeah. We say them the same way. But some dialects of American English say those two words differently. One is caught and the other is caught. And if you say aw instead of ah in that place, then you have this sound, which is an open O, backwards open O. Now, in addition to the straight up regular vowels, we have vowel and vowel combinations. So I've listed all the different vowel combinations. People use them differently. There are vowels, sometimes vowels and liquids, vowels and glides combined. We call these diphthongs. And you want to mark them clearly. Sometimes people will write them to show that they're talking about a diphthong. They'll actually take the vowel combination and put a little connector over it, just like we do with affricates, to show that the two vowels are occurring to create a special sequence. And we want you to think of them as a diphthong, not as two separate sounds. So what I'd like to do now, because we can go through this, it's not going to help you until you do something with it. So what I want to do now is start transcribing. So you're going to need to have your sheet with your sounds on it out. And I want you to pull out your transcription practice sheet. And let's see how well you do at reading things in transcription. So take a look. I'm going to give you a few minutes. I'd like the people who are on this side of the room, okay, this side of the room, I want you to do the ones that start up on, I want you to do this column of words. People who are on this side of the room, I want you to try and read the ones in this column. Write in the blank what you think the word, what it's saying. would shut look like? Shut. It's the right consonant. The upside down V, right? The sound. Like in truck. It would look like this. Yep, shot. What about this one? This is my pronunciation. You might have a different vowel in one of these spots. Happen. I say happen with an A sound. But you might say, I've had students who say happen, happen. Those are both different vowels. So you have to listen really carefully to what vowel you're making. And if you have a different vowel in that spot and you transcribe the vowel you actually say on the test, it's correct. You do not have to transcribe it the way I say it. That's not your job. Your job is to listen to your own language and transcribe what you say. What about this one? Roach. Another affricate there. What about this one? Beautiful. What surprises you about this transcription? It kind of looks like it.
The U, or like the upside down horseshoe.
The upside down. Oh, the beautiful. Oh. Okay, to me, I have the sound input. You might have a different sound in there. Beautiful. Some people get surprised by the J in there. They're like, wait a second, but because we don't have a Y in beautiful, but there is actually a sound in there, even though there's no letter that tells you there's that sound. It's one of those mysterious things about English spelling, where sometimes we have letters that make the sounds and sometimes we don't.
Well, the reason I asked you is because we put so much emphasis on the B that you really don't hear the yup until you actually say it.
Right. And it's hard, so you have to slow down when you're talking and think, okay, so beautiful. You go, beautiful. And it's weird to slow it down like that, but to say things to get all the sounds out. But if you don't have that ya in there, it sounds wrong. Beautiful. You sound like a little kid. Beautiful. That's beautiful. So definitely you need the ya in there, but it's not there. In terms of letters. Okay? What about this one?
Late.
Late. Yep, that's late. And this one? Think. Yes, think. What about that next one? Georgia. You're looking like, really? Georgia. 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 Not allow.
So that pygmies for a live with that.
Okay, so let's sound it out. What's the first sound? Ah. What's the next one? All. So we have all. What sound does this make?
All those.
And then oh. So it's although. That's although. Which of course we spell with a G and an H. Because that makes total sense. But that's because the word used to be said with the sound which was written GH. We don't say it that way anymore, and now we have this archaic spelling that reflects an old pronunciation. Okay. How about this one? Pleasure. Pleasure. This z, that right there is the z sound, like in treasure. And this is that weird rhotic in bird. Leisure. What about this one? Sleep. What about this one? Pleasurable. This one's a tricky one. People don't believe me when I tell them what this says until they think about it. That weird question mark sound is a sound that gets substituted for the t sound at the ends of syllables very often, and it sounds like this. You stop the air flowing. It's a stop. It's a glottal stop. You stop the air at your glottis and don't let any air through just for a split second. Batman. This says Batman. Now think about how you say Batman. You're like, but it has a T in it. Say it. Batman. You don't say Batman. You say Batman. Batman. You never make the T sound, ever. Batman. Your tongue never comes up and hits the alveolar ridge. There's no T in there. You spell it with a T because you know that there should be a T sound in there, but that's not how people really say it. Batman. Batman. Huh? You're like, this is just some crazy stuff. All right. What about this one? It's got an affricate in it. Choke. With the lovely silent E. English spelling. Ugh. What about this one? Coke. What about this one? Cake. Of course, we spell O with an O, but A with an E. That English. Okay. What about this one? Junk. Junk. No, that's an affricate. J, like in bridge. It's an affricate. It's not a G sound. It's an affricate. J, like in judge, bridge. Jump. This is junk. What about this one? Blind. Oops, I can't spell it now. Blind. All right, now comes the real challenge. Now you have to try and write the words. Okay, the first sound is S. We write that with the letter S. What's the next sound in state? The T sound. What's the next sound in state? A. How do we write the A sound? The lowercase letter E, that's right. And what's the last sound in state? The T sound again. And that's it, right? We don't have any silent E's or anything on here. There are no silent symbols in IPA. Every symbol is a particular sound, and once you have all the sounds, you don't write anymore. State. Now we're going to do song. Song. What's the first sound in song? Okay. next sound in song? Ah. What? Ah. Song. Some people it might be the backwards C like in caught. Some people might say that. Some people might say song with just the lowercase letter a, ah. Like in box, song. Okay. What's the next sound in song? No. Song. She's writing it in the air. It's this. It's the N with the tail. Engma, right? It's that. It's this thing. Song. No. In English, we don't make that sound by itself. It's always at the end of a word in words like king and sing and ring. And it's very weird for English speakers to try and make that sound by themselves. Nom, 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 nom. In Japanese, it occurs as its own syllable, so that's why I can do it, because I have to be able to do it as a syllable by itself. Okay, so what about swing? First sound is S sound. Second sound is W. W sound. And here's where we're going to disagree. What the vowel is. What do you think the vowel is here? Big I or little I? Capital I. Swing. It. Swing. And what about the next sound? Swing. It's that engma. N with the tail. Engma. Again. Your brain is like, oh my gosh. It's way too early in the morning to be doing this stuff. Make sure you have lots of coffee, because when you start reading it, your brain's going to be ready to explode. Okay. Next one. First sound is? No, first sound is S, the S sound. Yes. Sword. Okay. Next one. So. Oh. How do we write that?
The O like in soap.
O like in soap. Okay. Sword. Upside down R. Sword. D sound. Sword. Next one. First sound is M. Next sound is meh. Eh. How do we write that? Eh. Backwards 3. Mel. Oh, the old sound, yes. Mel. And the last one? Mellow. Oh. Now some people might want to have a diphthong here. Mellow. Mellow. And in that case, you could have a diphthong like oh, which goes like this. Mellow. Depends on how you drag out that. Some people just say mellow or mellow. Maybe if you're feeling mellow, you'll say it with a diphthong. But if you're not feeling mellow, it's just an O. Yes?
Can you use a diphthong for sword?
For sword?
Okay.
So you're thinking, could you use a diphthong like this one? R.
The one for sword.
Sword, like that? Like an OU? Sword? Yes. Yeah. You can totally do that. That's fine. Yeah. That's not an uncommon pronunciation, so that's fine. Oh, here's another one that has lots of letters we don't say. What's the first sound in night? The N sound. What's the next sound in night? Huh? I. So it's night. It's a diphthong. I. You actually start saying and you end saying e. I. AI. I mean, you can be Scottish. Okay. Night. T sound. Okay. Next one. Cookie. That's a good word. Starts with okay. Cookie. Oh.
I used that.
Upside down horseshoe.
So you have use the upside down V. That's in truck. So that would be cookie.
That is the upside down horseshoe.
Horseshoe. Like the in put. Cookie. Horseshoe. And E. How do we write the sound E?
The I.
Which one?
The lower.
Lowercase I. See how brainwashed you are by English spelling? You're just like, this is so hard. Now here's the, before we move on to the next bit, what we're practicing right now is something called phonemic awareness. And in order to be able to read, children have to develop the ability to take the words they know and separate them out into sounds so that they can start to learn to match the sounds that they hear to the letters that go with them. And in the beginning, it's really difficult in American English because, as you can see, we have lots of words with letters that don't have sounds. But we do have many words that have regular spellings. Like every time you see the letter S, you can guess that it makes the sound S, right? You're not going to be right every time, but you can make that guess. So we have some letters and sound matching that goes together pretty well. And kids start with those mappings, and then from there, gradually learn to read. So what I'm trying to do is take you back to that place where you're listening to the individual sounds. And I know you can all do it because you can all read, but it's very hard because you've learned quite skillfully to ignore differences and just kind of think of words in terms of how you spell them and not how you actually say them. And so we're trying to build slightly different connections. So I get that this is challenging, but if we keep working at it, we'll actually get much better at it. And it's very useful. Having this ability helps us a lot when we're trying to transcribe speech errors, look at speech perception, like the experiment we did last time in class, looking at children's speech. We need to be able to write down exactly what we hear because this is the language that our brain thinks in. It doesn't think in spelling, it thinks in this. And we have to be able to tap into that knowledge, and we can't get to that implicit knowledge until we have a way to write out what we're really hearing. All right, I want to give you a few minutes now to try people on this side of the room. Fork. F sound, okay? Fork. Upside down horseshoe. That would be fork. Which I guess I could hear someone say fork? How's that sound to you? Fork. Hmm? Does it sound okay? Fork? Fork.
How's Halsey say it?
Fork. O. O. I think I have more of an O than a oo. O. 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 If I stop right there. O. I hear more of a. This might be one of those where we've got something like this. Fork. One of those diphthongs like that. That might be why you're hearing ooh and o sound, or it could also be something like that.
That's what, yeah,
Fork,
that's what I did.
like that.
Yeah.
Fork with a diphthong. Yeah, I can live with that. Or fork.
Oh, I did it with the upside down force two and an R, is that?
Yeah, that's how we need an R in there for sure. R sound. And then what's our last? Fork.
Okay.
Fork. The k sound at the end. Next one. There. What's the first sound in there? Ed. Ed is the first sound in air. It's the thing it looks like a D or something like that with a line across it. The voiced interdental fricative. Yes.
So you can't put the beta sound?
That would be there. That would be there. And I don't know anybody who says there. I'm going over there.
Actually, never mind, I've actually heard somebody say that.
They say there.
They put way too much emphasis on it's not true.
They're trying to be posh. Let's go over there. They're trying to affect a British. There's our British dialects that will do it that way, but if you're speaking any dialect of American English, I don't know anybody who says there, unless they're trying to have some weird, breathy, sexy voice.
Or they're a dramatic person.
A very dramatic person. It's like there. So dramatic. Okay, but in here where we're not being overly dramatic. There, right? It's the sound, the voiced interdental interdental fricative. Okay, so then there. What do you hear? Backwards E, backwards three, backwards three. Okay. And then what do we hear at the end? There. So something like this? Yeah, technically in American English it's supposed to be this upside down one and that means something else, but it's really hard to write this one. It's like, I don't know why it's so hard to write R upside down. So if you write this right side up R, I won't come after you with a stick unless we have some reason to distinguish the two sounds as being something different. If you write it as right side up R, I won't kill you. But just know, if you're reading something like the assignment I'm going to give you for next Monday, this one.
Looks like alien, huh?
It does, but that's actually English. In here, you'll see the upside down R. Okay, so we'll continue to talk about this on